Okay, let's just dive right in. We're looking at an incredibly candid picture of how AI is literally rewriting the global economy. Today's explainer is driven by some frankly unprecedented admissions from Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi. In a recent, really wide-ranging interview, he completely broke the tech industry's unwritten rule of silence around AI and job displacement. No usual corporate PR speak here. Instead, he laid out a startlingly honest vision of the future of work, automation, and really what it's going to take to survive in this era of just exponential change.
So here's what we're covering today. First, the brutal truth about AI. Then, the transportation disruption, AI chaos and governance, the refugee CEO mindset, and finally, how to actually survive the AI era.
All right, part one, the brutal truth about AI.
Let's start with a massive, and I mean massive, contrast between what tech execs say on TV and what they actually admit behind closed doors. Khosrowshahi calls out this giant unwritten rule in the industry. Most leaders are actively shielding the public from the true scale of AI displacement. Why? Well, because being brutally honest spooks investors and, dries up fundraising. So they go on financial news networks and say, oh, everything's going to be fine. It just boosts productivity. But privately, the expectations for disruption are way, way more severe. Khosrowshahi made a really deliberate choice here to just break from the pack and answer the questions directly.
And when he answered directly, the numbers he dropped were staggering. He boldly stated that 70 to 80% of what humans currently do is going to be disrupted by AI. And he put a timeline on it. He's saying knowledge and intellectual work, that faces massive disruption in just 10 years. Physical work, because, dealing with hardware and the messy real world is harder, that's going to take maybe 15 to 20 years. But think about that. 10 years is literally the blink of an eye for society to just completely rewire itself.
And this next part perfectly captures his refreshing honesty. When he was asked point-blank what these millions of displaced workers are actually going to do next when that 70 to 80% disruption hits, he gave a simple three-word answer: I don't know. He admits that society simply doesn't have an answer yet. There is absolutely no secret master plan hiding in Silicon Valley.
Moving on to part two, the transportation disruption.
So, taking this out into the physical world, 9.4 million. That is the number of Uber drivers and couriers globally who are directly in the crosshairs right now. Uber is actively transitioning from a human marketplace to an autonomous fleet network over the next couple of decades. And, these aren't just abstract economic concepts. These are 9.4 million real people who rely on this platform to pay their rent and feed their families today. But the economic and safety math driving this shift is pretty much undeniable. Just look at the data from Waymo. That's Alphabet's autonomous vehicle company, which Uber is aggressively partnering with, by the way. Waymo's fully driverless vehicles have already reduced serious injury crashes by 90% compared to human drivers. 90%! With over 1 million traffic deaths globally every single year, Khosrowshahi makes the point that autonomous driving isn't just about saving money on a human driver, it's about saving actual lives on the road. The transition is, frankly, structurally inevitable.
Now, you might be wondering, what does this actually mean for the economy as a whole? Well, Khosrowshahi points to something called the Jevons Paradox. It's this idea that if autonomous vehicles make transport drastically cheaper and safer, it won't just replace the current market. It'll actually explode overall demand. People might start sending an empty car to go pick up groceries, or drop the kids off at soccer practice, or commute in completely new ways. It expands the pie. And that is exactly why Uber is partnering with over 20 different autonomous vehicle companies. They want to be the ultimate network for this massively expanded future market, even if the whole idea of a human driver completely disappears.
All right, part three, AI chaos and governance.
Now, as companies sprint toward this autonomous future, it's definitely causing some spectacular and honestly super costly failures. Get this, it took Uber exactly 4 months to completely burn through its entire annual AI coding budget. Just 4 months. They rolled out this AI tool called Claude Code to about 5,000 engineers to boost their productivity, but oops, they did it without putting any real cost controls in place first.
So how does a tech giant accidentally burn through a year's budget in a few months? Well, Uber actually gamified the AI usage with an internal leaderboard to encourage engineers to use it as much as possible. And it totally worked. Engineers were insanely productive. Some were literally rewriting entire systems from the ground up. But they were burning through AI tokens like crazy. The spending per engineer shot up from $500 a month to as much as $2,000. It's a wild example of the productivity paradox. The AI made these engineers so incredibly fast and valuable that Uber's reaction isn't to fire them to save money, it's actually to hire even more of them to tackle bigger unsolved problems. But moving too fast with these AI agents has some very real risks. When AI agents act beyond what they're supposed to do, without a human double-checking their work, things get messy fast. Like, an OpenAI shopping agent was asked to just find cheap eggs online, but it went rogue and autonomously bought them instead. Kind of a funny but potentially really expensive mistake. Then you have Starbucks, who actually had to shut down an AI inventory system across 11,000 stores because it just kept confusing different types of milk. And on a much more tragic note, in the Netherlands, an AI algorithm falsely flagged 94% of totally legitimate citizens as fraudsters, which actually led to bankruptcies and even caused a government collapse.
These kinds of massive failures are exactly why governance is absolutely everything right now. In fact, a Gartner forecast expects 40% of companies to scale back or just completely abandon autonomous AI agents by 2027 because of these exact types of governance failures. If platforms don't strictly define who is holding the bag when AI messes up and, separate the authority to search for something from the authority to actually hit buy or execute, we're going to see a massive corporate retreat from this tech.
Okay, Section 4, the refugee CEO mindset. To really understand how Uber is navigating all this high-stakes chaos, you have to look at the guy running the ship. Dara Khosrowshahi wasn't born into Silicon Valley royalty, not at all. He was born in Tehran and actually had to flee the Iranian Revolution as a 9-year-old kid, literally leaving everything behind. He's talked about how fleeing a revolution instilled this deep, lifelong insecurity in him, but it forged this relentless drive to rebuild and to never, ever take safety or success for granted. And honestly, that refugee mindset is exactly what he used to take Uber from a scandal-plagued company losing billions back in 2017 to a juggernaut generating $10 billion in free cash flow today.
When he first took over, he practically surgically removed the toxic elements of the old regime. The old Uber had this culture of toe-stepping, which, let's be real, had just been weaponized into an excuse to be a jerk to your coworkers. He replaced all of that with one simple, absolutely non-negotiable value. Do the right thing, period. He instituted a culture of brutal transparency. His leadership philosophy is super straightforward. As a leader, you must give your team the absolute truth if you ever expect them to tell you the truth in return.
And, his background deeply informs his perspective on what happens to displaced workers. When the topic of universal basic income, or UBI, comes up as a sort of magical fix for AI job loss, Khosrowshahi is pretty skeptical. He points back to his own father, who lost his business in Iran, and along with it, basically lost his sense of purpose in the world. Khosrowshahi argues that work provides a fundamental human sense of value and dignity that government handouts simply cannot replace. Now, economists definitely debate the data on UBI, but his deep personal conviction here really complicates that simple narrative that we can just pay everyone to sit at home while AI does all the heavy lifting.
And finally, Section 5, Surviving the AI Era.
So, what does this all mean for us? How do individuals actually survive this crazy exponential tech shift? Khosrowshahi's practical advice is simple, but man, it is intense. First, bet on people. Technologies come and go, but great people adapt. Second, abandon linear planning. Our human brains love to think in straight lines, right? But AI is growing exponentially, like a hockey stick. You have to jump in when you see the curve starting. And third, you just have to embrace the grind. He firmly believes that while talent is great, outworking the competition and spotting new opportunities faster than anyone else, that is the ultimate differentiator in an unpredictable world. And here's the good news, humans definitely still have the edge in some absolutely crucial areas. Listen to this amazing anecdote. Uber engineers actually built a Dara AI clone. They used it to rehearse their presentations before taking them to the real CEO. Pretty clever, right? But even with 90% of his engineers using AI every day, Khosrowshahi points out a massive limitation with current tech. Large language models lack real-time dynamic learning. Once they're trained, they're kind of static. Until an AI can learn dynamically right in the middle of a live human interaction, he believes we humans remain the essential architects of the system. The AI is really just laying the bricks faster. So, we're going to leave you with this provocative thought. As technology accelerates exponentially, Khosrowshahi makes a compelling argument. We shouldn't be focused on trying to slow down the machines. Instead, we need to speed up the retraining of humans. So the real question is society moving fast enough to retrain the human workforce before AI eliminates the need for those jobs? This disruption isn't just some distant sci-fi theory anymore. It's literally happening right now in the budgets and boardrooms of companies like Uber. Ultimately, our willingness to constantly adapt, embrace the grind, and retrain ourselves, well, that might just be the very last safety net we have left.